Hello tool groupies, today on the Backwoods Mechanic channel we're going to be reviewing an essential tool that a wide range of tradesmen need to do their jobs with accuracy and precision, and that's going to be this digital caliper. Now, there is a very wide range of different calipers out here on the market in the tool world. They're made to perform a specific job or task, which is to basically measure with precision and accuracy the inside, outside, and the depth of whatever object it is that you're working with. So it can be very crucial and delicate to a repair that you're making. Whether you're a machinist, automotive technician, industrial mechanic, maintenance man, carpenter, plumber, there's cheap calipers out here that range for a few dollars all the way up to the more high-end calipers that could cost you a few $100. It all depends on your job and what it is that you're actually repairing. Now, if you're somebody who wants to get the basics to get your job done with, you're going to be looking for some type of caliper, whether it's the Vernier, whether it's the dial, but I'm telling you right now, the digital ones are going to simplify your job. It's going to make it a lot easier, and it's only going to cost you $35. This one right here from Advance Auto or CarQuest stores was only $35, and it will make your repair and your life much easier. Today's digital caliper is made by Tech Correct. It is model number TQ507. It's made in China from hardened stainless steel. It's got size indicators right there on the body of it. Inch on the left, metric on the right. The digital screen mounted right there below where the jaws divide at. It comes with two LR44 batteries, so as soon as you pick this up, you can take it out of the case and get straight to work. This does come with a black blow-molded plastic case with the words digital caliper and the size indicators right there letting you know what this is in case you've got it stored somewhere or if you're going to pick it up and transport it for on-the-go repairs. It will prevent it from getting damaged. Now, on the back half of the case here, it does give you the basic instructions you'll need to start working with this tool, or you can open the case up and you'll also find paper instructions along with the batteries right here inside. So this is going to be really good for beginners. If you don't know how to use these, you're a do-it-yourselfer, it's going to help you learn how to use these. Unlike traditional calipers that require you to make several different measurements to determine a final result, this one is fairly simplistic. Now, here's a good shot of the instructions that come with it. And it gives you visual diagrams. Plus the batteries you need to install. Now, when you go to install the batteries on this, that's why you've got a little arrow here and one little arrow right here. This one, where the 0 and the on-off switch are, all you got to do is pull it down and it will expose where the battery is. And it does already come with one battery installed. Now, the secondary arrow back here, if you open it up, it is meant to hook up to a computer. It has integrated data output for transferring information to a computer, and it plugs in right there. Now, the scale on this ranges from 0 to 150 millimeter or 0 to 6 inches, and it's within 0.2 millimeter or 0.01 inch of accuracy when used properly. So it's very easy to operate. It does have the red on-off button right there, a blue size selector button for inch and metric sizes, and a yellow 0 button to zero out the scale before measuring another piece. On the back side of it right here, it has this little knurled lock nut. That way you can easily lock it into place by turning it to the right, turning it to the left. It gives you a little bit of a grip. And it's got this dual dial right here, which allows you to adjust this thing with ease. So once you adjust it to the size that you need, that you're working with, you can tighten it up and lock it right into place. So it gives you fast, accurate adjustment just within seconds, which beats the far out of the old school traditional calipers right there. When you're done making your measurements, all you got to do is unlock the screw right there. Gives you those little grips right there with knurling. Then take it, push it right back into place. Once it's pushed back into place, zero it out, turn it off, put it in your case. And then boom, it's ready for transportation, ready for storage, whatever it is that you choose to do with it. Either way, for the price of $35, you get the case. It helps get your job done faster with more accuracy, more precision. It helps reduce the amount of mistakes you might make on a job. Reduces the amount of downtime, reduces the amount of money you got to spend on wasted parts because you might have measured something wrong. Having a digital caliper is well worth the price. This caliper also comes with a lifetime warranty, as you can see right there on the box. So if you have any issues with this caliper, just return it to Advanced Auto Parts Store or CarQuest stores for a replacement. But do clarify before you leave the store any information, any questions you might have on the warranty process so that you know ahead of time how it's going to work. I'll go ahead and tell you real quick some of the pros and cons about having a tool like this. Now, regardless of whatever profession you're in, if you're out here, you're doing lawnmower rebuilds, you're working on small engines, whether it's boats, you're doing plumbing, HVAC, carpentry work, industrial mechanic, maintenance guy, automotive technician, whatever the case may be, if you have something like a caliper, it's going to take you a second to get the measurements dead on, especially if you got these older style calipers. Now, with me, I have a wide range of different calipers because I do a whole bunch of different repairs. I work on machines for different companies, commercial machines, industrial machines, heavy equipment, a little bit of everything. So I have to invest in the better quality tools for the jobs that require that type of precision. Now, for the most part, when you're doing things like changing bearings and stuff like that, you'll want to be able to get the right measurements on, let's say, a shaft. You want to measure the outside diameter, the depth of it, inside diameter, all that stuff. Make sure you get the right bearings for it. With something like these, whether it is the dial scale, which you see right here, it's got this big clock looking thing on it, that's your dial scale, or whether you've got the traditional style Vernier right here. You got inch and metric to choose from. You're going to have to take those, you're going to have to measure them, you're going to have to get the results off of it, write them down, and then, all that kind of stuff. That takes time to do that. It takes a minute to write all this information down, chart it down to get the precise numbers that you need for that job. And that's something that I don't want to have to deal with on certain occasions, you see, because if a machine is down and a company calls me up and it is vital to their business staying open, I want to get there and get that machine fixed as quickly as possible. And in order for me to do that, I need certain tools that's going to help me get that machine fixed as quickly as possible. And something like a digital caliper, which is what we're reviewing here, that might be able to help me get that job done, because all I got to do is set this on whatever it is that I'm measuring, inside, outside, depth, all that good stuff. I can get my measurements within seconds, and then I will be able to determine exactly what it is that I need to get that machine repaired. Whether it's the bearing, whether it's the shaft, I can get my results twice as fast with a lot less hassle. With everything you get here and what this actual tool does, it's well worth the price of $35. It's nice, simple, compact, lightweight, and it's going to help reassure that your job is getting done right with accuracy and precision. In my experience, I have seen businesses go out here and make mistakes that cost them twice as much money, twice as much downtime, because they didn't do the job right. And it could be something as simple as misreading one of these Vernier scales. If you misread one of those, you order the wrong part, it's going to cost you. I've seen businesses go out here and order bearings for machines that they've got, and it cost them $1,200 just for one bearing, only to order the wrong bearing. And they didn't know about it at the time. They thought they had the right piece, and when they started banging it on the machine and figured out it didn't fit, guess what? They couldn't return it. They had to wait for the right, accurate bearing to get there. And it's because someone like me will come in, use a tool like this, and get it done right the first time around. Now, before we go any further, I want to show you all basically how this thing functions, how it works, by giving you a prime example on a job that could have been done better had the company invested in the right tool for the job. Now, as many people might know that's watched some of my videos, I do make repairs for industrial laundries and factories and things of that nature. And some of the things that I fix is bearings on those big industrial washers. And this is what's referred to as a sleeve. Now, this one company had tried to make a repair themselves, and they ended up screwing the job up. And the reason they done that was because they wasn't sure on what they was working on. They thought it would be something as simple as pulling the washer apart, taking the bearing off, putting a new bearing in. This right here is what's left of the outer race of the bearing, because they had to chip the inside of the bearing apart piece by piece, pull it off of there, and then they had to basically take and grind the edge on this, pop this thing out. So whenever they got the bearing, they instantly assumed that everything would go right back on nice and easy, because when they pulled this out, they wasn't thinking about it when they were measuring it. So what they did was they took one of their calipers and they measured the outside diameter on one side of it here, and then they measured the inside diameter of it. And when they done that, they ended up flipping it over without realizing it and measuring both sides of the inside diameter, but they did not measure both sides of the outside diameter, which is where they made their mistake. You see, when using these types of calipers, if you're not 100% sure on the measurements, you have to write them down and you have to get the accurate results of what you're working with. They kind of just flopped them together, tightened up the little set screw, and hoped that it held on when they were measuring the other side. They didn't take the time to slow down and get the right measurements for each side with these. Something like this digital caliper right here could have saved them a whole lot of trouble. Now you can see right there with the jaws flush together, it is reading 0.05. So all you got to do is hit that 0 button and it zeroes it out. Now whenever they pulled all this off here to get the accurate measurements, let's redo essentially what they did. We will measure the inside here. Now to get an accurate measurement on the inside, you go right there in the middle of this and you pull them smaller jaws out and it will tell you the inside measurement, which on this is 88.34. Now if we flip it over here to the other side and decide to measure this, it's not sliding directly down inside there. It's going to be slightly off, so we will readjust it here and we will get the proper measurement, which is 88.20. So that's a little bit off, but it's something within reason, where if they're not actually looking at the measurements, they're just kind of using the jaw width to hope that they got the right size, they could make a mistake. But that's off just a little bit. So something like that within the jaw capacities, they probably just popped it on each side and thought it was all good. So what happened was, when they were looking at this, they were getting similar measurements on each side just by measuring the jaws out, leaving the jaws as is, flipping it over, putting the jaws back in it, and saying, oh, that's pretty close. Then when they flipped it over, they decided to measure the outside capacity. Now when they measured the outside capacity, it probably gave them 103.29. So they were thinking, all right, we're good to go. Let's order the bearing. Here's the size we need. And then they go look in the book. Whatever it was that they did, they got the wrong bearing. But what they didn't do was flip it over and check the other side. 103.29. Now we flipped it over here and we've got 98.45. That is a substantial difference, especially whenever you're working with bearings and shafts, and you have to make sure that you've got the precise numbers for what you're working with. That tells me it's far enough off. This is a tapered sleeve. So essentially, whenever they pulled all of this off here, they were assuming, given the measurements that they got, that this was going to be the same size, because the inner shaft was the same size in relative, within just a few millimeters. But the shaft, of course, it's going to be the same size. This is the sleeve. The sleeve itself is what's tapered. That's what the actual bearing sits on. And making the mistake of not measuring this to the right size you needed meant that they ordered a $1,200 bearing that they didn't need and they couldn't use. And then they had to wait another day or two for the right part to come in, and that cost them thousands of dollars a day, every day that machine wasn't getting fixed because they didn't do it right the first time. Another thing these digital scales are good for is measuring the depth of something. For an example, whenever you went to go take out the old bearings, you should have took this caliper, measured the depth of this bearing on the inside. That way you know exactly how far back the race went, how far back the sleeve went, and when you reassembled the new bearing inside of the bearing housing, you would know exactly where to put it at, because you could mark it or measure it. So we'll give you a little bit of a visual demonstration here. Let's say that the manual said it has to be exactly 3.5 inches to the tip of this. Let's say this is the back of the bearing housing. You take this and put it to 3.5 inches. So right there's my 3.5 inch mark. What I would do is putting inside of the actual bearing housing, and then I would slide that sleeve back to the very tip of this, which in theory should look like this right here. It would be exactly 3.5 inches from the back of the bearing housing where it should set at. So that's how it would operate for depth. On the back side of your digital scales here, you're going to have this information. Inch and metric. That's something that a lot of these digital calipers are used for. People working in machine shops. You know, you're machining something, welding something, ordering, you know, you're fixing stuff. You need precise measurements, and it's, you know, some kind of tool out here on the market. If you're somebody who has trouble with reading the different types of measurements, because, you know, some of these have a 1 or 2 step process where you have to measure something out, write down the measurement, then you go down and count the numbers, or you got to count how many times the dial goes around, and, you know, you got to add all this stuff up, multiply it, all that kind of good stuff. I mean, it's time consuming. It's a hassle, and some people just don't want to have to deal with that kind of hassle whenever they're in the middle of a repair. Most people would prefer to have something that's nice, accurate, to the point, right then and there, which is where the digital scale comes into play at, you know? Especially if you're someone who doesn't use these that often. If you're somebody who pulls these out and uses them as you need them, you know, once every month or every 2 or 3 months maybe, once every year. You don't want to have to go with something like this, because then you're going to have to pull out your manual. You're going to spend, you know, 30 minutes trying to read it, figure out how to use it again, all that kind of stuff. These digital scales will be blunt, to the point, and they'll give you a good feel for what it is that you're working with for the low price of 35 bucks. You know, and then later on, after you're comfortable with it, especially if you're a beginner or do-it-yourselfer, then you can make your way up to these different types of calipers, such as these right here. But anyhow, all the links and the information for this product will be in the description box below, so go check it out. If you want deal alerts, you want to see these tools in action, you want to see more tool reviews, then go pop the clutch on that subscribe button, or hop over to Instagram and click follow on the Backwoods Mechanic page. Otherwise, do comment down below. Let everybody else on this thread know what you think. Have you used these tools? Have you used this particular name brand? If you have, how has it worked for you? Is it good? Is it bad? Tell us your pros and your cons. Tell us what type of stuff you actually use these for in your profession, and then tell us the type of model you use and that you recommend. That way other people know whether to buy it or not, whether they should get something different or not, depending on your opinion too. As always, regardless of whatever it is that you're doing, go grab yourself the tools that you need and make repairs great again.